Most people are invisible. I don't mean literally, you can see them walking around, taking up space, consuming resources, but nobody looks out for them. Nobody wants them, nobody seeks their company, their advice, or their participation in anything meaningful. They just exist, contributing nothing, creating nothing, becoming nothing. This is a harsh reality, but it's a reality nonetheless. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about because you've either been this person at some point or you've watched others live this way. The question is, why does this happen? And more importantly, what can be done about it? The invisible people believe in a fairy tale. They believe that if they're just nice enough, just quiet enough, just undemanding enough, the world will eventually notice their goodness and reward them accordingly. They think that being low maintenance is a virtue that others will appreciate and reciprocate. They are wrong. The world doesn't operate on a merit system where good people automatically get good things. The world operates on a value system where valuable people get valuable things. And here's the thing, being nice, being quiet, being undemanding, none of these things create value for other people. Think about it this way. When you're deciding how to spend your limited time, attention, and resources, do you seek out the person who makes no demands on you and offers nothing in return? Of course not, right? You seek out people who enhance your life in some way, who entertain you, educate you, inspire you, help you, challenge you, or provide you with something you want or need. The invisible people have confused being harmless with being valuable. They've spent so much energy trying not to be a burden that they forgot to become a benefit. And in a world where everyone is competing for attention, resources, and opportunities, being harmless is very similar to being worthless. But let's talk about how someone becomes invisible in the first place. It usually starts with a series of rejections or disappointments early in life. Maybe they were overlooked in school, struggled to make friends, or felt like they were always the last one picked. So instead of learning from these experiences and adapting, they drew the wrong conclusion. They decided that the problem was that they were too much, too needy, too visible, too demanding. So they made themselves less. They learned to shrink. They learned to ask for nothing. They learned to expect nothing. They convinced themselves that this was wisdom and they were being realistic about their place in the world. But what they actually did was create a self-fulfilling prophecy. By expecting nothing, they ensured they would get nothing. The invisible people operate from a scarcity mindset disguised as humility. They believe that attention, affection, and opportunities are limited resources that should go to more deserving people. They have positioned themselves as spectators in their own lives, watching other people get the things they want while telling themselves that they never wanted those things anyway. This is pretty much self-harm disguised as virtue. And the most subtle part is that it feels noble. It feels like they're being selfless, considerate, mature. But it's actually the opposite. It's a form of self-abandonment that helps no one. Here's what the invisible people don't understand. When you make yourself invisible, you're not just hurting yourself. You're depriving the world of whatever unique value you might have contributed. Maybe you have insights that could help someone. Maybe you have talents that could create something beautiful. Maybe you have experiences that could provide comfort or guidance to others. But if you're invisible, none of that matters. The world is not improved by your absence. The world is not made better by your silence. The world is not enhanced by your self-abandonment. And the people in your life are not benefited by your constant agreement and self-sacrifice. In fact, they often lose respect for you because of it. Why? Because people value what they have to work for and dismiss what comes too easily. When you make yourself constantly available, endlessly accommodating and agreeable, you teach others that your time, opinions and presence have no value. And they believe you. This creates a vicious cycle. The more invisible you become, the less others invest in you. The less others invest in you, the more invisible you feel. The more invisible you feel, the more you retreat. The more you retreat, the more invisible you become. And round it goes. But here's the good news. Invisibility is a choice, which means visibility is also a choice. If you've been living as an invisible person, you can change that. The first step is to understand that visibility requires risk. You cannot be seen without the possibility of being judged. You cannot be noticed without the possibility of being criticized. You cannot matter without the possibility of being rejected. The invisible people have spent their lives trying to avoid these risks. The second step is to develop something worth seeing. You can't just decide to be visible and expect that to work. You need to become someone worth paying attention to. This means developing skills, cultivating interest, forming opinions, and taking actions that create value for yourself and others. This is where most people get stuck. They think visibility means being loud or offensive or attention seeking. But that's not visibility, that's desperation. True visibility comes from competence, from having something to offer, from being genuinely useful or interesting or inspiring. So ask yourself, what do you bring to the table? What do you offer that others might want? What problems can you solve? What experiences can you share? What skills can you develop? What knowledge can you acquire? What art can you create? What value can you provide? If your honest answer is nothing, then you've identified the problem. You've been so focused on not being a burden that you never learned how to be a benefit. You've been so concerned with taking up less space that you forgot to make the space you do occupy worthwhile. The third step is to start making demands. This sounds counterintuitive to people who have spent their lives being accommodating, but it's important. When you never ask for anything, people assume you don't want anything. When you don't want anything, they assume you don't need anything. When you don't need anything, they assume you don't matter. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or entitled. It means recognizing that you have legitimate wants and needs, and that expressing them is not only acceptable, but necessary. It means setting boundaries. It means saying no to things that don't serve you. It means asking for what you want instead of hoping someone will magically figure it out. The fourth step is to become comfortable with conflict. Invisible people avoid conflict at all cost, but conflict is often the price of visibility. When you have opinions, some people will disagree. When you set boundaries, some people will be upset. When you pursue what you want, some people will try to stop you. This is normal and necessary. The goal is not to seek out conflict, but to accept it as a natural consequence of being a real person with real preferences. The alternative is to live as a ghost, agreeing with everyone about nothing, standing for everything, and therefore standing for nothing. The fifth step is to stop seeking permission. Invisible people are constantly looking for approval before they act. They want someone else to validate their choices, to tell them it's okay to want what they want or to do what they want to do. But nobody is going to give you permission to actually matter. You have to give that permission to yourself. This means making decisions based on your own judgment rather than others' approval all the time. It means taking action even when you're not certain of the outcome. It means believing that your life is worth living fully, even if others disagree. The invisible people think they're being humble, but humility is not about making yourself small. True humility is about accurate self-assessment and appropriate action based on that assessment. So if you have something to contribute, hiding it is not humble. It's cowardly. Look, I'm not suggesting that everyone can or should become famous or extraordinarily successful, but everyone can become visible in their own sphere. Everyone can matter to someone. Everyone can contribute something valuable. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price. The price of visibility is vulnerability. The price of mattering is the risk of being rejected. The price of having a real life is the possibility of real failure. But consider the alternative. Consider spending the rest of your life as you might have been living it, invisible, unwanted, unnoticed, existing, but not really living. Consider reaching the end of your life having never really tried, never really risked, never really been. So what do you think about this topic? Let me know in the comments below, and please like this video and share it with someone who you think might benefit from its message. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.